Hi again, everybody, and welcome to FH&P Lawyers Law Talk. I'm Clay Williams. I'm a partner here at FH&P Lawyers, and we've got a great show for you today. Whether you are listening on Spotify or Apple Play or whether you are watching on YouTube or Rogers TV. Great show. I'm here with Kevin Cheung. Kevin Cheung is a U.S. immigration lawyer. What the heck does that mean? I don't know. What I do know about Kevin is he's a pretty accomplished guy and is, in fact, called to the New York bar. So you are called to the BC bar, but also to the U.S. bar?
Yes, that's correct. That's a very nice intro, Clay.
Well, it's pretty impressive. It's not the U.S., it's the New York bar.
Yeah.
Okay, and then that gets you access to the United States system, or how does that work?
Yeah, it does, which is why I'm able to practice in U.S. immigration.
Okay, well, so what the heck is, first of all, what is U.S. immigration law? I'm not sure. It's a new one for our viewers.
Yeah.
We haven't had a U.S. immigration lawyer or department or whatever you want to call it. So tell us what the services you provide. What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, at its core, it's about helping people get into the United States or out of the United States legally.
Okay.
It's interesting that you say that you've never had a U.S. immigration service or lawyer before, and I think that speaks to how underserved this area of law is in not only in the Okanagan but in BC in general. And I'm not going to toot FH&P too much, but we've made a commitment to.
You feel free.
Okay.
You feel free to
sure.
to tell us how awesome we are.
Sure. Yeah. But I mean, we've made a commitment as a law firm and as individual lawyers to serve our community, and this is just one area where we've had an opportunity, or I've had an opportunity to be able to serve this underserved community. Again, part of it is because I'm able to practice in this area of law, but another huge component of it is we've got a highly trained U.S. immigration paralegal who's able to take this on with me. And so we've got the capacity, so it just made sense to join what I think is an already strong immigration team at the firm.
But what do you do? Like what does it mean to be a U.S. A U.S. immigration lawyer?
So basically, I help people get into the U.S., particularly if there's any questions about their admissibility. So sometimes that's based on health grounds. Sometimes that's based on previous immigration violations, and oftentimes it's based on a criminal record.
So are you talking about just going on a trip, or are you talking about getting the right to work down there, or both? Or
both.
I see.
So let me tell you a story. It's a story, a recent story that's been covered in the news, Canadian media, and it's a guy, Canadian citizen. He's in the oil and gas industry. He's lived in the U.S. for a couple of decades, maybe 3 decades. He's got a family down there, 3 small children. He's got a fiance. His parents live down there, and he's got a green card, and he's been going in and out of the U.S. for many, many years, no problem. Last fall, he goes on a trip to Mexico, comes back into the U.S., and he gets detained. And he's still detained. It's been 4 months, 5 months. He's still detained. He can't see his family.
But he's got a legal right to work in the States.
He's got a green card. He's got a legal right to work in the U.S., yes. Wow. But the reason why he was detained was because he's got a criminal record. And this was a criminal record dating back 20-some-odd years. A few misdemeanors. I think there was possession of a controlled substance, possession of a gun, a DUI. But this is obviously a problem now because he's being detained. So in those circumstances, we've got clients that have similar circumstances trying to get into the U.S. And under those circumstances, we would help them out by preparing a waiver, a U.S. entry waiver for them, and hope the goal is to avoid such problems.
So even like going down for a vacation or something like that, or a stopover to fly somewhere, I guess might be a problem.
Yeah, the worst is the stopover because it could just be a brief stopover and you still have to go through that port and you might be detained there. And who knows how long you're going to be detained for.
And so what type of of criminal convictions are they worried about? Is it everything?
Well, it's not everything, but any type of criminal record.
Like a DUI?
Well, in this case, there's a DUI along with a couple of other ones, but it's unclear in this case what exactly they're worried about. But yeah, if you've got any type of criminal record, you're going to want to determine if you need this type of entry waiver or not. Maybe you don't, but it's pretty scary these days because there's more and more stories like this gentleman here. And the lesson from these stories is that the consequences of going into the U.S. where maybe you've got a questionable admissibility problem is that your freedom's at stake here for however long. And so having some type of legal guidance in that entry process, I think is pretty critical.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's an amazing story to me that this guy's still in detention.
It's sad.
It just seems to be a complete breakdown of a legal system there. Very, very crazy. But you're right. I mean, if you've got to stop at a port or something, your freedom is essentially an issue. So and that's nice. You can do it all here.
Yes.
So for our viewers, we're located in Kelowna, British Columbia. But I suppose you can help people, throughout British Columbia, throughout Canada.
Throughout, yeah, it's anywhere in Canada really. It's kind of amazing that we've got clients who are coming to us who are forced to hire lawyers outside of this area. They're calling people in Calgary and Vancouver. I had a couple come to me the other week who were in the process of engaging a lawyer in Florida to help them with their U.S. immigration stuff. But I'm happy that we're able to help them out from here.
Yeah, that's great. So what are some of the other things you do?
So what do we talk about? Entry waivers. Well, one of the other major areas is helping people work in the U.S. or eventually live in the U.S. There's a number of different pathways that can happen, and it's something that we offer.
There must be less of a pathway. It seems, just from what I see on the news. It seems like
I would say
shrinking.
I think it's actually the opposite. I think it's actually there are more pathways, but it's all the more complex which pathway you take, and if you take the wrong pathway, that could result in either a denied application or delays in the entire process, which is obviously not something that anybody wants.
Have you ever helped a person with the golden visa?
No. So that golden visa is like the $800,000 buying into a business. No, most of our clients are not the 1%ers. They're just ordinary, everyday folk who want to work and play down in the States. I have not helped.
So do you work with an employer, or is that
Yeah, it could be both ways. It could be the employer that requires assistance. So there's any number of businesses that we work with who are either trying to bring down a Canadian down there, a Canadian who has a specific skill set down to help them out, or there are Canadians here, business owners who want to expand down into the States, or who have a plan to move down to the States eventually, and so we help them out with that.
Okay, well, that's pretty. Well, it is. It's so nice that we've got somebody up here, because you're right. When I would think about it, I think you would hire an American, but having your licensing here, that's nice. You can actually meet them, and
for sure.
And so what are some of the other things that you're dealing with?
So I guess the other major category of people that we help out are those U.S. citizens who are thinking about or are in the process of renouncing their citizenship. It's obviously a very personal and difficult decision. I mean, can you imagine giving up your Canadian citizenship? It's
Why would I guess Americans want to give up their citizenship?
well, usually, I mean, they're going to be in a position where they're dual citizens, Canadians and U.S. And
So if you become a Canadian citizen, are you automatically a dual citizen? Is that the way it works?
well, yeah, you would have a citizenship in Canada and in the U.S.
Okay.
Yeah, but at a certain point,
I'd like
people,
that. I'd be like a spy. I'd have two passports, wouldn't I?
maybe. But the problem for you is that, and for most folks who are in this position, is that they're paying taxes in two countries.
Yeah.
And that's, I say it's a very personal decision to be made, and that is the case. But at a certain point in time, the reality of the taxes that you're paying hits you pretty hard. So yeah, that's I think that's why a lot of people renounce their citizenship.
And so you do that. You're a Canadian citizen. You're living here. It's time to reduce that tax.
Yeah,
burden,
and
which is interesting because I always think we get taxed, more than the Americans. But I guess if you're taxed by Canadians and Americans, then that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and in the U.S. they tax on citizenship rather than where you live, and so you could be a U.S. citizen living anywhere in the world. You still got to file your tax returns and pay U.S. taxes, and if you don't, there's pretty significant penalties for not doing so. And living in Canada, a lot of people might think that the U.S.-Canada tax treaty covers them and they've got nothing to worry about. But the misconception about that is that there's a number of different items that are not covered by that treaty that have pretty significant implications for U.S. citizens or U.S. dual citizens. So one of them is the tax on the sale of a principal residence. As a Canadian citizen only, I have the benefit of selling my principal residence, whatever capital gains there are on that sale. It's tax free for me. I don't have to worry about that. But for a U.S. citizen, that's not the case. They sell their principal residence; they've got to pay a tax on that, on a gain on that after a certain threshold. But what that means for a dual citizen is that you don't get that benefit of selling it tax free. So that's one of the most common ones, I think.
But they get the benefit of writing off the interest on their taxes too down there. So yeah, okay, but even so, the Americans might want to reach across the border and tax you on the sale of a principal, and they can do that, eh? They can
For sure, yeah.
Do they sue? Is that how it works?
No, I don't. They wouldn't sue you, but they'd come after you through collections or other means, and there's certainly a group or a subset of individuals who don't file their U.S. tax returns and who think they'll never have to file their U.S. tax returns because they think the U.S. government is never going to track them down. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you that over the last 10 or 15 years, the U.S. government has increased their efforts to track down U.S. citizens abroad to make sure that they're paying their fair share of taxes in the U.S.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And there's a nice piece of legislation that came about during the Obama administration. I think it's called the Foreign Accounts Tax Compliance Act or something. I think that's what it's called. But basically, the gist of that legislation is that the U.S. government compelled foreign banks to hand over the bank's clients' information if they were U.S. citizens with accounts with these foreign banks, and turn it over to the IRS. The IRS can go and track these people down.
Wow!
So they're coming after these people, for sure. And
But do you have to file? Are you supposed to? Is there to file taxes even if you don't make any money in the United States?
Even if you don't make any money,
you still have to file a null tax return?
Yeah, even if you don't make money in the U.S., you're taxed on your citizenship. So if you're making money in Canada or anywhere else in the world, you've got to report that income to the U.S. and pay your fair share of tax on that income, subject to the tax treaty, of course. But yes, you have to file that return.
Wow, yeah. Geez. Okay, well, hopefully our listeners and our viewers aren't feeling very uncomfortable right now. But if you are, you know who to get a hold of here, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of planning that can happen and strategy that can happen in terms of trying to help people navigate their tax situation and maybe their renunciations situation. And so it's good to talk to somebody and have a team of professionals really to help you through that process to try to do it in as efficient a way as possible.
Yeah, I imagine that people would have a lot of questions about that. So do you have any personal stories that about the immigration process?
So I did go to school in the States for my law degree, and one summer I had a number of job interviews in the States, but at the time I didn't realize that I needed to have some immigration paperwork related to those job applications. And so I'm at the border and I get stopped, and they asked me for my immigration paperwork, and I hand over my student visa, and I thought that was it. And unfortunately for me, that wasn't it. They asked me for my work paperwork or what I was planning on submitting. And I didn't have that because it didn't exist for me. And so they dragged me into secondary. I was in there for, I don't remember how long, but I missed an interview. So that wasn't a good feeling.
Wow. Nowadays you'd be in detained for 4 months, perhaps. Eh?
Yeah, I wouldn't be back until next fall.
So you firsthand, you better have this planned out before you go down, eh?
Yes.
So I understand that FH&P actually now has a satellite office in New York.
Yes.
Because of your practice.
Yeah, we opened that up late last fall. Pretty excited about it.
Well, I hope it's got like several bedrooms, because I really do like to visit New York. What a cool city, you know. So hopefully I do really well, and maybe we can get an apartment in Manhattan. They're not expensive, are they? So hey, great to have you on the show, and to our listeners and viewers, we'll see you next time.